Hello, and welcome. Today, we're journeying back in time to a period known as Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance, to understand the reality of life for women before the dawn of Islam. It was a world shrouded in darkness, where a woman's existence was defined not by her humanity, but by her relationship to the men in her life, her father, her husband, her tribe. She was often seen as an object, a possession, without an identity or honor of her own. In pre-Islamic Arabia, tribal power was the ultimate law, and this system normalized severe oppression against women. They were denied the most basic forms of dignity. Imagine the heartbreak of a father upon hearing he has a daughter. The Qur'an captures this devastating reality, saying, "When one of them is given news of a female child, his face becomes darkened, and he is filled with grief. He hides himself from the people because of the evil he has been informed of. Should he keep her in disgrace or bury her alive?" This verse isn't just a story. It reflects a horrifyingly common practice: female infanticide. Newborn girls were buried alive. Why? Some tribes believed daughters brought shame and were a financial burden. Killing them was seen as a way to protect the family's honor and resources. This single act reveals the shocking depth to which women were devalued. Marriage, too, was a landscape of profound inequality. A woman could be inherited like property. When a man died, his son or another male relative could simply claim his widow as a wife without her consent. There were no limits on polygamy. Men could marry 10, 20, or more women, often without the means or intention to care for them. And divorce? It was a cruel, one-sided affair. A man could abandon his wife with a single word, leaving her destitute, while she had absolutely no right to end the marriage, no matter the abuse or neglect she suffered. Financially, women were completely powerless. They couldn't own wealth, inherit property, or run their own businesses. Any money or goods they might acquire automatically belonged to their male guardian. This complete economic dependency stripped them of any chance at security or independence. If her husband died, a widow was often left with nothing, cast out and helpless. She was seen purely as a liability, someone to be fed and clothed, offering no economic benefit in return. This mindset was a key driver behind the barbaric practice of burying daughters alive. Legally, a woman was invisible. Her voice held no weight in any dispute. She could not testify in court, seek justice for wrongs committed against her, or protect herself from oppression. She was entirely at the mercy of her male guardian. Marriage contracts were tools of control, not partnership. A woman could be forced into a marriage without her approval. In some tribes, men would even swap wives with each other like trading cards. The concept of a dowry, or mahr, which Islam later established as a gift to the bride, was then just a bride price paid from one man to another, solidifying the woman's status as a commodity. Slavery added another horrific layer to this exploitation, where women were bought, sold, and abused with no rights over their own bodies or the children they bore. If a husband passed away, his male relatives inherited not just his property, but his wife as well. They could decide to marry her, sell her, or simply dismiss her. While we hear stories of exceptional women like Khadijah, who was a successful businesswoman, it's crucial to remember she was a rare outlier in a society that actively suppressed female participation in public and economic life. For the vast majority, engaging in trade or farming was considered shameful. In short, the world for women before Islam was one defined by erasure. Their humanity was denied, their economic rights were non-existent, and the legal system offered them no protection. It was a system built on domination, where cruelty was the norm. It was into this deep, suffocating darkness that Islam emerged, not just as a new religion, but as a revolutionary force that would fundamentally and forever transform the status, dignity, and rights of women. Ever wonder what life was truly like for women before Islam? In many societies, it was a dark time, a world steeped in injustice where women were often seen as less than human, sometimes even as property to be inherited. But then a profound change swept across the land. With the arrival of Islam, a spiritual revolution began, one that would forever transform the status of women. Allah, glorified and exalted be He, brought a radiant light into this darkness. Islam didn't just improve the lives of women, it restored their very humanity, their honor, and their spiritual identity. It declared a radical and beautiful truth, that women are equal to men in the sight of God. This wasn't just a minor adjustment, it was a complete paradigm shift. The Qur'an laid down a new standard for human worth, one that had nothing to do with gender, wealth, or social standing. In Surah Al-Hujurat, it states, "Indeed, the most honorable of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." Suddenly, the measure of a person was their piety, their consciousness of God, their taqwa. A woman's worth was now defined by her character and her faith, not by her father or her husband. She was no longer a secondary being, but an honored servant of Allah, with her own direct connection to the divine. This spiritual equality was comprehensive. Islam established that women pray, fast, give charity, and perform pilgrimage, earning the same divine rewards as men. On the Day of Judgment, every woman will stand before Allah, individually accountable for her own deeds, not as an extension of a man. The ultimate reward, paradise, is promised to righteous women just as it is to righteous men. Think about the profound respect embedded in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When asked who is most deserving of a person's good companionship, he replied, "Your mother." He was asked again, "Then who?" He again said, "Your mother." And a third time, "Your mother." Only on the fourth time did he say, "Your father." This incredible emphasis on honoring the mother culminates in his famous saying, "Paradise lies under the feet of your mother." This wasn't just a nice sentiment, it was a divine instruction that placed mothers at the pinnacle of society. But Islam didn't stop at spiritual honor, it championed intellectual empowerment. The pursuit of knowledge became a sacred duty for every Muslim, with no exception for women. The Prophet, peace be upon him, actively encouraged women to learn. He designated specific times to teach them directly. This led to an incredible flourishing of female scholarship. Consider the example of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the wife of the Prophet. She wasn't just a wife, she was a brilliant scholar, a jurist, a teacher, and a political advisor. She narrated over 2,000 hadith and was a primary source of knowledge for many of the great male companions. When they faced a difficult question, they would often say, "Go ask Aisha." She and many other women like her became lighthouses of knowledge, illuminating the path for the entire community. Their classrooms were filled with both men and women, eager to learn from their wisdom. This was the norm, not the exception. Now let's talk about some of the brutal pre-Islamic practices that were completely eradicated. The horrifying custom of female infanticide, burying baby girls alive out of shame or fear of poverty, was widespread. Islam condemned this practice in the strongest possible terms. Allah revealed verses in the Qur'an that will be recited until the end of time, questioning this cruelty. And when the girl, who was buried alive, is asked for what sin she was killed, the birth of a daughter was transformed from a source of gloom into a source of immense blessing. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who himself was a loving father to 4 daughters, taught that raising daughters was a path to salvation. He said, "Whoever raises 2 daughters well, they will be a shield for him from the hellfire." This completely overturned the cultural bias against girls and celebrated their existence as a mercy from God. Islam also fundamentally reformed the institution of marriage. Before, a woman could be inherited like an object, passed from one man to another. She had no say in who she married. Islam abolished all of this. It made a woman's consent a mandatory condition for a valid marriage. A marriage forced upon a woman is null and void in Islam. The concept of a dowry, or mahr, was also transformed. It was no longer a bride price paid to her father, but a gift given directly to the bride herself, which becomes her exclusive property. Marriage was redefined from a transaction of ownership to a sacred partnership built on mercy, love, and tranquility. It's a bond of mutual respect and support. A woman's identity was no longer absorbed into her husband's. She retains her own name, her own property, and the right to manage her own finances. This legal and financial independence was granted to women over 1,400 years ago, a right that women in many other parts of the world had to fight for until much more recently. So when we look back, we see that Islam was truly a liberating force. It took women from a state of oppression and objectification and elevated them to a position of dignity and honor. It confirmed their spiritual equality, championed their right to education, protected their very lives, and secured their legal and financial rights. This was the spiritual revolution that restored the God-given status of women. It's a legacy of empowerment, respect, and justice that continues to inspire millions of Muslim women around the world today. It's a history that needs to be known, celebrated, and understood in its proper context, as a testament to a faith that honors the woman as a blessed and equal partner in building a righteous society. Have you ever wondered what life was truly like for women before the arrival of Islam? In many societies, women were seen as property, denied basic human dignity, and had no legal standing. They couldn't own land, they couldn't inherit, and their voices were completely silenced. It was a bleak and unjust world. But then, a divine revolution occurred, one that would forever change the status of women and grant them rights that were, and in many ways still are, unparalleled. This is the story of how Islam didn't just improve women's lives, it completely transformed them. Let's start with something fundamental: inheritance. Before Islam, it was unthinkable for a woman to inherit from her family. Wealth and property were passed down exclusively through the male line. Islam shattered this tradition. In the Qur'an, in Surah An-Nisa, Allah states, "For men is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave, and for women is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave." This was a groundbreaking declaration. For the very first time, women were given a legally protected, God-given right to own and inherit property. This wasn't just a small change. It was an economic earthquake that gave women financial security and independence. Her property was hers alone, protected by divine law. Now let's talk about marriage. In the pre-Islamic era, marriage was often a transaction between men, with the woman having no say whatsoever. Islam turned this on its head by making the woman's consent an essential, non-negotiable condition for a valid marriage. A marriage forced upon a woman is invalid in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself annulled a marriage when a woman came to him complaining that her father had forced her into it. This gives you an idea of how seriously consent is taken. Furthermore, Islam introduced the concept of the mahr, or dowry. But here's the crucial difference. This dowry is a gift given directly from the groom to the bride. It is her exclusive property. It doesn't go to her father or her family. It belongs to her. She can do whatever she wishes with it. And once married, she maintains full control over her own wealth and property. Her husband has no right to her assets unless she willingly gives them to him. She keeps her own identity, often even her own family name, and maintains her financial independence within the marriage. This established the woman as an equal partner in the marital contract, not a subordinate. But what happens if a marriage becomes unbearable? While Islam holds marriage as a sacred bond, it also recognizes that not all unions are successful or healthy. So, just as men have the right to divorce, Islam gave women a pathway to initiate the dissolution of the marriage. This is known as khula. If a woman can no longer live with her husband, She has the right to seek a divorce by returning the dowry he gave her. This was a revolutionary legal right that provided women with an escape from a harmful or loveless marriage. It was a recognition of her humanity and her right to seek a life of peace and dignity, rather than being trapped in a miserable situation forever. This balanced the rights between spouses, ensuring that neither party was forced to endure a relationship that had broken down. One of the most powerful testaments to women's empowerment in Islam is their right to economic independence. Islam doesn't just permit women to work and earn an income. It encourages them to be productive members of society. Women have the right to own businesses, enter into contracts, and manage their wealth entirely on their own, without needing a male guardian's permission. The ultimate role model for this is none other than Khadijah, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Before she even met the Prophet, Khadijah was one of the most successful, respected, and wealthiest merchants in Mecca. She was a brilliant businesswoman who managed her own vast trade caravans. She was the one who proposed marriage to the Prophet, hiring him first to manage her business because of his renowned integrity. Her story isn't an exception, it's the model. It proves that from the very beginning, Islam supported and celebrated the economic achievements of women, recognizing them as key contributors to the economy and society at large. Next, let's discuss a pillar of any thriving civilization: education. The very first word of the Qur'an revealed to the Prophet Muhammad was Iqra, which means read. This command was not just for men, it was for all of humanity, men and women alike. The Prophet himself emphasized this, saying, "Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim." He didn't say every Muslim man, he said every Muslim, making education mandatory for women too. This emphasis led to an explosion of female scholarship in Islamic history. Women were not just students. They became renowned teachers, jurists, and transmitters of knowledge. The Prophet's own wife, Aisha, was one of the greatest scholars in Islamic history, narrating thousands of hadith and issuing legal rulings. Students, both male and female, would travel from all over to learn from her. Throughout the centuries, women established schools, funded libraries, and became respected authorities in various fields, shaping the intellectual landscape of Islamic civilization. This tradition of female scholarship is a shining legacy of Islam's commitment to empowering women through knowledge. Islam also brought a radical new standard for how women should be treated, establishing their protection from all forms of abuse. In a time when harming women was common, Islam came with a clear and powerful message of kindness and respect. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, set the ultimate example. He said in a famous narration, "The best of you are those who are best to their families, and I am the best of you to my family." He was known for his gentle and loving treatment of his wives and daughters. He also said, "The most complete of the believers in faith is the one with the best character, and the best of you are the best to their women." This wasn't just a suggestion, it was a moral command. Harming a woman, whether emotionally, verbally, or physically, is strictly forbidden in Islam. The Qur'an commands husbands to live with them in kindness. This established a framework of compassion and mercy within the family, elevating the woman to a position of honor and mandating that she be treated with the utmost respect and care. It was a complete reversal of the oppressive norms that existed before. Now let's address the concept of modesty and hijab. In today's world, the hijab is often misunderstood and portrayed as a symbol of restriction. But in its true Islamic context, it's a symbol of liberation and dignity. Islam came to liberate women from being seen as mere objects of desire. The Quran instructs women to draw their outer garments over themselves so they may be recognized as respectable believing women and not be harassed. It was a way of saying, "Judge me for my intellect, my character, and my faith, not for my physical appearance." This command for modesty is also directed at men who are told to lower their gaze and guard their own modesty. It's a holistic system designed to foster mutual respect between genders and shift the focus from the superficial to the substantial. Hijab is a woman's declaration of her identity as a Muslima. It is a source of honor, empowerment, and a shield that preserves her dignity, allowing her to move through society valued for who she is, not just what she looks like. It is a choice and an act of worship, not a tool of oppression. Finally, Islam didn't just give women rights within the home. It integrated them into the very fabric of public life. Women in early Islamic society were not confined or invisible. They were active and vital contributors in every sphere. They were teachers and scholars like Aisha. They were businesswomen and traders like Khadijah. They were caregivers and nurses on the battlefield, tending to the wounded. Some even participated in battle themselves. They voiced their opinions in public, consulted with the Prophet, and participated in community affairs. From being treated as burdens, women were uplifted to become honored and respected pillars of the community, the Ummah. Their contributions were valued, their voices were heard, and their role was seen as essential for a healthy and balanced society. This holistic empowerment, covering the spiritual, social, economic, and political, is what makes Islam's vision for women so comprehensive and timeless. In conclusion, when we look at the historical context, it's clear that the advent of Islam was the single greatest revolution for women's rights in human history. Before Islam, women in many cultures were subjected to injustice, humiliation, and a complete denial of their humanity. After Islam, Allah, the Most High, restored their God-given dignity, rights, and honor. The rights to inherit, to consent in marriage, to own property, to earn an income, to seek divorce, to get an education, and to be protected from abuse were not gifts from society. They were divinely ordained rights. These principles transformed women from being oppressed and marginalized into honored, respected, and empowered individuals who became central to the flourishing of their civilization. The legacy of these rights continues to inspire and empower millions of women around the world today. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video enlightening, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content that explores the beauty and wisdom of Islam. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, peace be with you.